Greg.
Hello all, Sal Dog Piper here with you tonight. I have some special guests with me tonight, my close friend, like a sister to me. And we were here to discuss some stories and things in law enforcement, her being a fellow police officer and being through law enforcement career and retired now and has seen a lot of stuff. And I wanted you to get a perspective of what law enforcement was like through a woman's eyes that has come up through the ranks and has succeeded and made it to the rank of lieutenant and has done an outstanding job in her career. So I'm going to ask her a few questions. This is kind of off the cusp here, and we're gonna see where this goes, because this is kind of new for both of us here. I've never had a guest on my channel before, so I hope you enjoy it.
And I'm off camera.
And I have another friend that is off camera tonight watching us that's going to be producing this video. Kinda. But tonight, as you can tell, I am not smoking my pipe as I normally would. I am smoking a Hemingway short story tonight, and I will be drinking some Wild Turkey Long Branch. Excellent whiskey, or I'm sorry, bourbon, not whiskey. It's a bourbon. It's good stuff. Put hair on your chest anyway. So, how do I refer to you?
Whew, I don't know. I know I used Keisha as a narcotics name a couple times, but
We'll refer to my friend as Keisha tonight.
ooh.
Keisha is an undercover name that she has developed over the years in her undercover work. And yes, female officers work undercover sometimes. So, Keisha, tell me a little bit about your career.
I started off on patrol, was on patrol for I think 6 years or so. Did that for a while. My whole goal was to be on narcotics. I knew that in the academy. I was gung-ho for the narcotics route. Finally got on there after interviewing a few times, and got to be part of one of the best teams I think ever exists in narcotics. Sorry for the current narcotics team that's on there, but I'm going to hold true to the team that I was on while I was there. And then promoted from there to sergeant and then lieutenant. Got to do a bunch of the whole other squads, like negotiations, recruitment, academy. I'm forgetting some, but yeah, got to experience a whole gambit of awesomeness that happens with some of those other squads.
So, has it been hard, you think, for females to promote and be police officers in police work? Do you feel like you've had to overcome more as a female than you have or had a regular male police officer?
So I get this question in grand jury a lot, like, hey, what is it like being a female? What is it? I don't know, because I don't know what it's like being a male. Even though very tomboyish, I don't know what it's like to be a male. So the only thing I can say is that being a female, as far as I can tell, the generation that's out there now, even your generation, even though you're older, even that generation, are actually totally fine with women being officers and what they do, as long as they're freaking good at their job. Like, they expect everybody to be male or female. The only time I ran into problems were the top tier. The chiefs or the deputy chiefs or some of those that were really into the old style, that I think I've been told to my face before by somebody that's still currently there, hey, women shouldn't be in policing, let alone supervision, or a gambit of other things. But in my experience, the males that are secure in their masculinity and the ones that know that, you know, are secure in what they do and aren't afraid of challenges, they aren't scared of women doing their thing, because they're like, heck yeah, bring on that challenge. Let me have somebody else that brings me that top tier. Any man that I know that that is good at their job and is willing to have that challenge doesn't care if you're male or female. They're like, yes, bring me up to the top. Come here, challenge me where I'm at, and let me bring it up another notch. That's the best explanation I have.
I'll agree with that, because throughout the years that I've been in law enforcement, I've seen a major need in female officers in law enforcement to assist males in situations where a female can bring not only where a female victim can relate more to a female officer. Not only that, a female officer, sometimes we need, when we're searching female offenders that need to be searched, we'll call for a female officer that can find those weapons or can find potential drugs or other things on females that a male can't do.
The difference between a tampon and a crack pipe.
Exactly. Yes. And let me tell you, that has happened tremendously over the years. And I feel like, and it's like with every profession, you have really good female officers and you have some that are not very good. Just like with a male officer, you have really good male officers and you've got some that are just not that good at it. And you need a female to jump in there. Sometimes I've trusted more females sometimes than I have male officers when I've been in situations where things are going wrong or whatever. They may be able to bring a negotiation to the call, or when it's time to fight, they may jump in that fight and help me more than I have a male officer in my past. And you know, you can't rule out a female because they're female. They're much needed in law enforcement these days, more than people really know. People's always been under the assumption that a female can't do a male's job, but that's just not true. If they have the drive, such as my friend / sister here, they can do the job just as well as any man or better than any man. I've seen it time and time again. So what are some of the stories you've got? Is there anything come to mind at all? I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Is there anything that you can think of that might come to mind in situations where you've had to step up and take a leadership role to fix these calls or situations or potential dangerous things?
Specifically, funding calls or women related? It's hard for me to pull stories out.
Let's tell a funny story. Do we got any funny stories at all that we can think of?
I can think of a funny one or two.
Okay, tell the story about us in a foot pursuit.
Oh, no. I think our shadowy figure in the back there is better at telling that story than I am. Because I didn't even recall. That's one of those stories, right? That we don't recall sometimes because there's so many stuff that happened. So I forgot that even happened until he, the shadowy figure in the back, said something.
Yeah, I would talk more to your points. Leadership or taking control of a call on the 30 side. Well, I'd actually start with the academy.
The academy?
Yeah. And you had like 2-inch bigger arms than me when I started the academy.
Well, to be fair, I'm pretty sure you're 12 when you started the academy. But,
well, you were a leader in the academy.
I don't do the whole. It's hard for me to say I'm a leader, but I just if you guys can tell, I came from I didn't mean to advertise having like 3 hoodies right now because it's freezing out here, and I didn't think to bring a coat. So I came from Michigan State swimming, so I came from an athletic background. So the academy and the athleticism didn't bother me as much, even though it was way harder than I had anticipated. There was a lot more vomiting than I thought there was going to be. Sometimes from our shadowy figure in the back there. But the first day There was a lot of vomiting. But other than that, I didn't expect it to be hard academically. I got to be honest. I thought I was with everybody else. I thought police, not everybody else, I want to lump everybody, but I thought police were kind of like inept on the academic sense, right? I was with the general public thinking like, I don't know anything what they're doing. I was kind of embarrassed to be in a patrol car. I didn't really want to be a cop. I just knew it was a gateway to something else. And then I realized all of the laws and the city policies and the city laws that I needed to know.
Spelling test.
How to spell things on top of everything else, because again, everything was written at the time.
You would not believe the amount of people that can't spell simple words.
Paraphernalia is not an easy word to spell unless you know.
Yes, this is true.
Spell Virginia.
Pennies in the Virginia. Yeah, I don't know if we can go into that story or not, but
vagina is a medical term.
that is true. That is true.
Virginia,
vagina. You know, yeah.
People live and learn, I guess. But
yeah.
So yeah, I didn't. I was flabbergasted by the academic portion of it. And I wasn't a dumb kid. Like I went up through college and everything and got good grades, but the academics got me. I mean, I was surprised. I didn't expect to have to study so hard.
To y'all's point on female officers, as many great female officers as we have and should have, we talk about the Red Man, which is a 3-minute fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Keisha went in there and fought for all 3 minutes without an issue, just like the rest of us.
It's a hard fight. It's hard.
The other candidate quit or tried to quit.
Yeah, we like I go back to saying you've got really strong, driven female officers, and some unfortunately are like I said, males that are not driven for the job and can't handle it. But you have that select few that can handle it, and I would take over a man any day in law enforcement.
Yeah, to me, right, there's a standard. And maybe the standard is male oriented or maybe it's female oriented. I don't know. But there's a standard that we as a police department set because of whatever reasons.
It's law enforcement oriented.
What did I say?
Law enforcement oriented.
Oh, yeah. What did I say? Department oriented?
Well, no. I would say it's law enforcement oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do the job if you can.
Yeah, it is.
You did the job.
So it's law enforcement, and if we as women can't accomplish that, the same as some of the men can't. I've seen so many men fail that, especially being involved in the academy side. Then we can't do the job. And sometimes it's not about simply doing the task; it's about doing the task under stress. So if you can't handle that small stress that it is, hey, you have this amount of time to do this task, whatever it is. What either it's menial, or it's like something that you actually have to physically prepare for, be it push-ups, and you didn't either dedicate yourself enough to actually prepare for that physical activity, or you aren't mentally prepared for the academy. Because I promise you, there is 1,000 other things that are going to test you mentally after you get out of the academy that you are not going to be prepared for if you're not prepared enough to actually accomplish those tasks when they're tested in a sterile environment. No matter how much you think that people are yelling at you and stuff, that is a sterile environment. There's nothing in there that's going to hurt you, as opposed to when we're out there in the streets and you get stabbed, shot, hit by a car, whatever.
I definitely agree with that. So some of the funny stories we were going to mention a little bit earlier while we were talking. So we, me and Keisha, and a few others had responded to a call in a neighborhood, and to the life of me, I can't remember what the call was at the time, but we had
it was a narcotics search that turned into a runner.
Okay, a narcotics search that turned into a runner. And I'm glad I've got this to bounce off people, because over the years you forget this stuff. Like I said, I've had head injuries over the years, so I don't always remember everything. But there's a lot of us in the area at this point, and this car comes flying by me, and
On the perimeter.
in the perimeter area, and I yell out over to my partner here that's in the area that there's the offender coming by us, and I use her name over the radio, which we normally don't use names, we use our call signs. And as they pass by us in the area, they go to a dead end road, and a foot pursuit begins, if I could speak.
Foot pursuit.
A foot pursuit begins, and we begin chasing this person on foot down a ditch line. It's a huge ditch, and we're chasing them down the ditch line, and I'm running, and I'm in the lead for a little bit, which I'm not very good at.
3 seconds.
No.
Yeah, running people very fast on foot. I was a slow runner, and my microphone that was attached to my shirt came off, wrapped around my legs like one of those old school weapons you would see, and it tripped me up as it wrapped around my legs, and as I'm falling, I'm yelling, "Sorry!" And I hit the ground, and I caused everybody else to get hung up and start falling, and everybody's laughing so hard,
but
that
still running.
it's
We're
still running, and everybody's laughing, and
Yeah.
it's a serious situation, but sometimes you got to find humor in these things that we do, because if you take your job too seriously all the time, I've said in some of my videos, it will absolutely destroy you as a human being. And you've got to have some sort of comedy and laughter in certain situations to help you get through those situations. Because like I said, first responders have weird sense of humors, because we deal with so many horrific and things that you can't really, even a normal person can't imagine that goes on, even in your small towns, that you probably don't know about, that really happen out there. The crime, the tragedy, the death, the danger. People don't see it because we don't advertise it like you do on the news all the time. Sometimes the news gets lucky and they'll catch a story.
Yeah.
But for the 99% of the time, the media and the public never know what happens in law enforcement, what happens to police officers, what danger that they get put in, what dangerous situations occur, what kind of death occurs, the common death, the suicides that never get reported, that law enforcement deals with on a daily basis, that you have to develop a coping mechanism to deal with that stuff, or it'll destroy you. And my last video or so, I've discussed that, and it's sad, and I hope people don't feel different about law enforcement officers. But if we didn't develop some sort of coping mechanism, you wouldn't have law enforcement officers out there. They would be quitting within the first couple months of their jobs, because they wouldn't be able to handle it. It's something that's built into us, that realistically, that it's a calling for law enforcement, and God and Jesus has put into people that you don't realize that it's even happening, and that helps you get through these situations, because a normal person can't deal with that happens. But and it goes back to, I mentioned that I might tell stories about suicides and different things. I didn't know how the community would react to that on YouTube, and that's why I put it out there. If y'all wanted to hear about it, I would discuss it. If you didn't, I wouldn't discuss it. And I've had some positive feedback, and I've had some people, rightfully so, say, hey, you may want to give a little warning before you start telling your stories about stuff like that. And I agree 100%. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable about things like that. But it's an everyday thing for law enforcement officers to deal with. And when you deal with that kind of stuff on a regular basis, it changes you. Like I've said in previous videos,
Yeah.
you're never the same person you were when you began your career in law enforcement. It completely changes you as a person, and it's not always for the better. It takes some of your soul away from you, dealing with these things, and it's a very hard job. And I'm not trying to say, you know, sympathy for every officer, but I want you to realize that what officers go through, you know, it's almost like you have your war veterans that's gone to war and seen all these horrible things in war, but yet your police officers deal with tragedy and horrific things on a daily basis for 30 plus years.
In their own streets. It's not something you can be like, oh, that happens
Right.
in North Korea, that happens in Russia or Afghanistan. It's like, no, hey, 2 streets over,
It happens
this
at
is
home.
my war.
Yeah, it happens at home.
I'd like to interject on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're talking about the humor and keeping your humility, and your military followers or any first responders would have exactly the same feelings. When you go in the military, you change. It's like trauma bonding.
Oh yeah, trauma bonding.
You go
Yeah.
through basic training or beyond combat or operations, and everybody develops like a grotesque humor that most people don't understand. But to your point, with police officers dealing with trauma on a daily basis, and I'm not taking away from the military at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, deployments, separation,
Yep.
isolation, hurry up and wait, sitting around. But there is reprieve at some point after a deployment where law enforcement, which is something I learned from the military law enforcement, there's no break. It's constant. And it almost builds up that band of brothers and sisters. I just include that all into one. That band of brotherhood just becomes a stronger bond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It changes the person. Military, all first responders.
Yep.
Even the tow truck drivers.
Yeah.
The linemen.
Tow truck, MZ.
All your first responders that see death and see tragedy on a first-hand basis, it's going to change you no matter what. You can't not change. It's not natural for a human being to see that much death and that tragedy and that child abuse and that rape and all the horrific things that go on in society that most people never hear about. You can't stay the same person. It just, you weren't, a human being wasn't made that way.
And sometimes you don't realize it changes you to a degree until like way after the fact, right? Like all of a sudden you have a different viewpoint on something, or you walk into a room and you evaluate it differently than you did before, or a certain smell triggers you different than before.
Sounds.
Yeah, sounds. To put it completely blatantly, we know what people smell like burning alive, what they smell like when they've been there for 10 days, what they smell like they're freshly dead, what they smell like they've been drowned, everybody identifies with those smells and knows it, and most people don't. And on a general basis, people as a whole have 2 traumatic events that happen in their lives. I don't want to say cops have 200 over the course of their career. I could have the numbers a little wrong. Maybe it's 3 and 200, but something along those lines.
Right.
And that's vastly different than the general public. So you can't expect police and first responders to see the world the same way that you guys do, or that civilians do, not you guys as a whole. And what I say is that I wish now I'm no longer in law enforcement. I'm a civilian outside of there. I've retired after 17 years. But it's the gift of obliviousness. I don't know what's happened on the street that I live in when I wake up in the morning. I don't know what's happened in the neighborhood when I wake up in the morning. But, years before I did. I knew who died, who got chased, what happened, what drugs were done, all that other stuff. But I think that we don't kind of identify with the gift of obliviousness when you are a police officer, because you know everything that's happened in every corner of that city, and who's assaulted which officer, who's done what in their past. And if you're a police officer, as long as, because I know you've been a police officer for a very long time, because you're so old,
Yeah.
then, than most. So you know what's happened on every street, on every time of day. So it affects you. Because you can't just go to the store and think, oh, I'm going to go get A, B, and C. You think, I'm going to go to the store. These 10 things have happened at the store, and this is what might happen while I'm at this store. So it gives you the gift of preparation, but also makes you worried about 1,000 things that might actually happen at that store.
And another thing in law enforcement, unfortunately, that since you've been through all these things, that first responders, but mainly law enforcement, are always on heightened security. They never can relax. Anywhere you go, you're preparing for a battle. You're preparing for the worst. You're trying to watch out for what's going to happen. You're trying to plan, if this happens or that happens, what am I going to do in this certain situation? Even when you're out with your family, you're worried about your family. You're worried about things that could potentially happen to your family, and an escape route for your family.
Yep. And
you're always constantly on watch. And it takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on you mentally, physically. And by the time you've worked this job for 25 or 30 years, you're wore out. The life expectancy for an officer after they retire is about 5 years, which is, if you really think about that, if you've done this job 25 or 30 years, you may get another 5 years out of your life because of the amount of stress you've carried and the hypervigilance that you've had to deal with throughout your career that carries over to your off-duty status when you're not working, because technically a police officer's never off duty. They're always on duty. When things really get bad and you're not at work, you're expected to intervene in certain situations to prevent death or severe injury to somebody. And that alone means you're never off duty. So
I don't shop at Walmart.
Yeah, shopping at Walmart sometimes.
It's rough, even if
It's
you
rough.
don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
It's entertaining, though.
Yeah, it's definitely entertaining. But we'll close this out a little bit. We've talked a long time about this. This video is definitely a lot longer than I've ever recorded before.
Sorry.
But it's good. I hope this gives you insight to what police officers go through, law enforcement goes through. I'm not trying to do this video for people to, think any higher or anything. Whatever their opinion is their opinion. But I just wanted to give you an inside perspective of what a police officer you see driving down the road, or a police officer you may know, or a police officer you see at random may have dealt with that day. And sometimes, there's good apples and there's bad apples in every profession out there. But sometimes you might get pulled over by an officer that just left a murder scene, or just left a rape, or just left a child abuse case,
somebody that died that was the same age as their kid.
Right. And they've had a bad day, and now they've got to go back to work. They've got to pull you over for a minor traffic violation, and they probably maybe not as polite as you think they should be, but they've just gone through a traumatic event that, that's affected them mentally, and it just happens. And I hate that it happens, and I hate that you've had a bad encounter with law enforcement.
Yeah, because it represents all of us. Like,
it
we don't.
does.
I think something that we don't speak about enough is that when a cop does legitimately act outside of the realm that we think that they should be acting in, we get more angry and a more pointed term than even angry about the situation than usually the general public, because that represents us, even though it's something that we don't practice.
Exactly. Yeah, we're everyday normal people that have to see the worst in society on a daily basis, and it's not an excuse for being rude or treating people badly. Don't take that the wrong way, but it mentally gets inside your head, and sometimes it comes off as being rude or unprofessional. And I hate that it happens. It doesn't mean necessarily that that officer's a bad officer, but he just dealt with something that has messed with his mind, and he's not, unfortunately, in the frame of mind. But we got to go back to work.
Yep.
It's like you have a bad day at work, you still got to work.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Your friend just died? Okay, well, go answer the next call. I mean, granted, that's a worst case scenario, but it's happened where we both have had friends that have died, and we have friends that are out there answering calls, because the city doesn't stop just because one of us have died.
Right.
The calls continue to come out in county and cities around will help, but it's not something that stops. And I look at him because he's been through a couple more of these than I have, but also it's the same story. No matter what happens, the city doesn't stop. The calls don't stop coming out. The little menial wrecks, the bumper to bumper accidents where there's no injury and barely any material injury, still happen, even if an officer dies, and we still have to answer them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do so. It's hard to care about little things when big things are going off.
We've had these incidents where our fellow officers are shot and killed, and we definitely are not in the right frame of mind. But like she said, we still have to answer calls for service. We still have to assist people that are calling 911 and that are in a traumatic situation in their own home. We just had a friend killed, and we're still having to respond to your call because you're in need of assistance. And it's unbelievable how strong officers can be to have to deal with losing a friend or a partner or a fellow law enforcement officer, and still have to help you with whatever's going on in your life, because it's obviously bad enough you have to call for police assistance or law enforcement assistance to be there. And we have to try to do the best we can. And over the past several years, even in our department where we work at, we've had several officers get shot and killed, and we still have to respond to the other calls, even as there's an active scene going on where our partners have been killed. So we really don't think about it. We just do it. It is a problem sometimes for us. Sorry. It can be a problem for us,
there's
but we
some
deal with
obscene
it.
stuff. See, cops stuff. We can talk about deep stuff, and
Yes.
it doesn't matter. They sell that dark humor that goes on beyond the freaking thing.
If y'all knew what happened in the
Doesn't
background,
matter.
I'm telling you, it's
We can be like, our hearts are bleeding, and they'll do something in the background to crack them up.
Yes,
that's perfect example of what you're talking about.
That's our dark humor that happens in the background. But
no,
anyway, I'm glad that y'all have listened to this. I hope you've listened to this all the way to the end. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the video. I'd appreciate it. if you want to hear more stories like this and have some guest speakers on, I think it helps me. It helps me mentally.
This is crazy.
Getting I'm definitely crazy. Get stuff off my chest, and I know I'm not talking to you directly. I'm talking to you through a video, but you would not believe that how much it helps to get stuff, the weight of the world off your shoulders sometimes, just to be able to talk to people and have correspondence through messaging and YouTube and that kind of thing. And but like I said, I appreciate y'all listening, and till next time, I hope y'all have a good day and a good night, and we'll see you later.